You're listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Laura Monique, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about delivering offers around the next evolution of you. Are you delivering an offer around who you used to be, or does it truly reflect where you're going, what you're growing into? And is it time to evolve your offer, or is it time to stay the course and stay and stick to what you've been doing? That is what I want to dive into in this week's episode with you. So you have likely heard a lot about creating courses, marketing courses, those big launches, all of those things. And what if your offer really does feel like it's working, quote unquote, it's selling, but it doesn't necessarily feel like you anymore? Maybe it felt like a version of you that you were maybe 3 years ago, but it doesn't necessarily reflect where you are or where you want to go. And I know for me, it can feel really daunting to have this pull that it's time to evolve and step into the next version when you actually are making money, maybe not the money you want to be making, but you are making money in your current offer. Is it time to evolve it, or is it time to stay the course? So I wanted to jump into this episode because I know if you have created something before, it can feel really challenging to know what to move into, what decision to make if you're in this place now. And that is really what this conversation is about today. So the first big idea that I want to dive into with you is how to know if you're really living within the limits of a box that you didn't even know you built. So I remember, if you've been following me for a little while, you likely know that I used to work with teachers. I still have the odd teacher client, but by and large, I work with entrepreneurs now. And I have taught forever. Even before I was a teacher, I was always teaching. I was a dance teacher. I've taught for a long time in different capacities. And I then created curriculum for teachers. I mentored teachers in my programs. And so I've grown up around teachers. My husband is a teacher. My mom was a teacher. Many people in my family are teachers. I've just always been immersed in that education world, right? And so that's kind of where I felt like I needed to be. Like that was the realm that I needed to focus on. Those were the people I knew, I understood. And so therefore, they were the people I could serve. And I remember feeling really, at some point, I don't usually regret many choices in my life, but I remember feeling frustrated and kind of pigeonholed into this box. And I remember feeling really frustrated or regret. I guess I regretted in some parts of me. I regretted going from business school into teaching. So when I was in university, I started out in this prestigious business school. It wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. There was a heavy emphasis on things like calculus and accounting and things like that, which are not necessarily what I wanted to go into. And it was very like zero sum, like very competitive. It wasn't about everyone has space, and it wasn't the realm of entrepreneurship and coaching that I know now. It felt very corporate and competitive. And it really wasn't for me. And I didn't like that energy. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be in business. So I ended up pursuing more of a language and international relations background. And then I went into teaching and taught French. And I regretted that decision because I felt like, oh my gosh, now I can only help teachers. Why didn't I stay in business school? I would have had so many more opportunities. And now I'm stuck teaching or working with teachers when I don't actually really want to. And what I didn't realize at the time was that was just a belief, a superimposed box that I had created for myself, that I believed that the only people I could truly help were teachers because I understood teachers so well and I understood the education world so well. And it wasn't until friends of mine started kind of like chipping away at that belief, like, you help us so much in our businesses. What if you worked with entrepreneurs? What if you helped people the same way that you help teachers? You could help entrepreneurs. Like, they're teachers too. They don't have that background. What if you started doing that? And I thought, I never, ever saw that as a possibility for myself. And so I kind of stepped into that very slowly over time. I evolved. I still worked with teachers for a long time, but I started kind of like getting the odd one-on-one client, and then they would refer me, and I built up my one-on-ones on the side before I really started my Instagram account, my podcast, and all that stuff, and started growing my entrepreneur audience and decided this is really the direction that I want to go in. And now that I've made that transition into working with entrepreneurs, I realize that that was just a box. That was just a perspective that I had created, a belief, a way of seeing my world that I had created for myself, when really I didn't. And then I thought, oh, I can only work with coaches because I've been a coach. But there are actually so many other niches and offers that I could have created with my expertise, but I didn't realize that there was something beyond my limited range of what was possible for me. And so what I would love for you to think about is, do you think the offer that you maybe created a couple of years ago, does it reflect a more limited view of possibility and what's possible for you than you have now? Does it reflect the you of 2-3 years ago that couldn't see what was possible for yourself? And even now, as you're listening to this, in a few years, you'll very likely realize that even right now, the lens you have now, you've broken through that lens and you see there's so much more that's possible for you. But that's the first thing I would love for you to answer or think about is, am I living within a constraint that I have superimposed on myself? And there's actually so much more possibility for me that I'm not even aware of. Because what that looks like is, you might be thinking things like, oh, well, that's possible for her because of XYZ, or that's possible for them because they had this background, or they know this person, or they have this level of knowledge. And that's not possible for me. If you ever catch yourself saying that's not possible for me, that is a really good indicator that you are living within a box, because everyone is really living within a box, and you can break out of that box and live outside of it, because really your goals are outside of that box. Does that make sense? So that's the first big idea to think about is, are you living within a box that you had created for yourself, and now you've pushed beyond that and you realize that you're capable of more, but your offer doesn't reflect that? So that's the first big thing to think about. The second is, are your current thoughts holding you back? And are they actually a form of sabotage or self-sabotage? And the way that I find really helpful to know if your current thoughts are a form of sabotage or are supporting you, there are a few ways to look at this. But the first lens that I want to give you is through the money archetypes. So the sacred money archetypes. So these are archetypes created by Kendall Summerhoff. And sometimes people think that they're woo. I don't honestly think they're woo. They really are such a great way. They really come to the core of how you interact with money. And how you interact with money is really about what you value and how you see the world. And so how you, like Kendall always says, how you do money is how you do everything. And there are different sabotages based on your archetype that could be coming into your programs and stopping you from evolving, or pushing you to change when actually you should just stay the course. So I'm going to give you some of these to kind of give you some insight if this is happening for you. And we dive deeper. This is what I'm really evolving my program currently, to incorporate layers of the archetypes, the money archetypes, into my program, because I see these sabotages coming up with my clients and I want to help you be able to spot them faster. So the first is the ruler archetype. So the ruler archetype is one of my top archetypes. And the ruler archetype is someone, this is going to be you if you are very, very ambitious. You want to build like the empire. You love working. You love your business. You love achieving goals. It never feels like enough. You just want to go and achieve and achieve and achieve. And you're very motivated by goals and achievements. And you naturally can work really hard. So this might be, if you resonated with that, you might have ruler as one of your top archetypes. So that one is mine. And the way that this can come up in self-sabotage is you're very ambitious and you want to get to your goals quickly. And there's this idea on the internet, like make 10K months, make this, look at all these people who are doing so well and they only did it in 3 months and blah, blah, blah. And so we can have this idea of like, why is it taking me so long? I should be further along by now. Why am I only here? Like I thought I would be further along. I'm not getting to my goals fast enough. This isn't working. And you can kind of spiral from feeling like you see your goal and you're not at your goal. And some people can say like, okay, that's my goal, but I know I'm working towards it. But if you're a ruler, you might superimpose this with, why am I not there yet? This isn't moving fast enough. And you transmute, this isn't moving fast enough to this is not working. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's not working. You've planted the seed. It may just not be fully grown yet. And it may actually be working. It just might not be working in the timeline that you think it's supposed to work through. And so the ruler sabotage is you, instead of allowing that seed to grow into the full-blown plant, you say, screw this seed, I'm planting a new one. This is really closely related to the Maverick archetype too, which I'm going to dive into in a second. But rulers, you can work so hard and you can work so quickly that if things aren't moving fast enough, instead of tending to them and refining them until they work, sometimes a ruler sabotage is just to create something new, create something new, create something new, create something new. And so you never actually comes to the full fruit. Like it doesn't really bear fruit, that seed that you planted, because you're not really tending to it and giving it the time it needs to actually grow into what you want to create it. So that's the first thing to think about is it time for you to evolve, or are you just thinking this isn't working fast enough and I'm just going to try something new? Because I have definitely done that. So that's the first. The next one to think about is the Maverick, which is somewhat it relates to what I was just sharing with the ruler. Is the Maverick is the kind of person who's super innovative, very bold, doesn't like to follow the rules, doesn't like to be told what to do. Champion of the underdog is what some people would say, or like really like you see the people that need to be that have had hardships in their lives and you want to really bring them up. You really care about social justice. You have this really innovative, bold way of seeing the world, right? And so this is my second archetype. And the thing with Mavericks is you are also impatient and you can burn things down if it's boring or if it's not moving fast enough. So similar to the ruler, if you have that like impatience and achievement of the ruler, if you combine it with a Maverick style and you're really quick to try something new and then burn it down because it's not working fast enough, that's another indicator that it might be your sabotage is coming and not running into your strengths, which we're going to talk about later in this episode too. And then the last thing to consider is a completely different sabotage. But it is if you lean nurturer, a very kind, nurturing, thoughtful person, and that's how you make your money decisions, or you lean connector, which is about connecting people, creating connections, creating community, connecting ideas. If you really, really lean towards like what you love to do in your spare time is like take care of babies, take care of animals, take care of plants. You're really, really caring and you get so much joy out of caring for others. Or if you are a connector and you love to make really strong connections with people. And it's hard to say because I do relate to both of those to a certain extent, but they're not my top archetypes. But one of the sabotages for both of these archetypes is that you really do want to evolve, but you're afraid to let people down. And so you stay the path and you don't actually move into the next evolution of where you want to go because all of these people that your audience, your clients are counting on you. And so you don't want to step into the next version of you because you don't want to let people down. And so what I would say, if this is true for you, is maybe you really are being called to evolve into the next version, the next offer, the next iteration of your signature program. but you're afraid to let people down, what I would say is, for sure, if someone's paid you, like, deliver what you said you were going to deliver. Of course, I'm very sure that you're going to do that. But you don't need to feel responsible for all of your audience, that you need to be the one to guide them. Because it's really important to remember that there are many coaches out there, many resources for people. So if you are in one niche and you're ready to move on to a next, or you are in one niche and you want to move on to someone who has more experience in that niche and you don't want to help beginners anymore, for example, they are not going to be helped. There are other people that can help them. You're not the only one that can help them. And so as long as you're delivering and you're doing it with integrity, you don't need to stay in the current box that you're in just because you're afraid of letting people down, because they can find other help. They can find other support. Like, one kind of way that I would show you a mirror of is my teacher clients often felt this immense pressure to, if they were having kids that were struggling, to bring them up to grade level, or to really, really support them. And if they weren't reading well or they weren't achieving X, Y, Z, they felt this immense weight. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do everything in your power to help those kids. But what I am saying is sometimes a kid is going to struggle with a concept in grade 2 and grade 3, but then they're going to get it in grade 4. And they can go along their own journey. And you are one. So if I was talking to my teacher clients, you're one teacher of a long line of people that are supporting this child. That's like, this is the village, right? And so you're going to do your best with what you can do if you're teaching grade 2, but then maybe those seeds that you've planted, the grade 4 teacher is going to be able to help them and move them through. So you are one of, like, if you see the big picture of where you need to be, or what does a student really need to know in grade 2? Well, they need to really develop their reading so that they can move into learning to read, from learning to read to reading to learn. So there's all these, like, if you see the big picture. And the same is true for us as coaches. If you ever feel like, what if I let people down? Just remember that you are one coach and there are other people that you're helping them along their journey. And there are other people that they can turn to for support as well. And you can live the life for you. If it's something that you feel like you're holding back because you're worried you're going to let people down, you can still evolve into the next version of you, because you can trust that there are going to be other people that will support your current audience. Does that make sense? So those are kind of some of the sabotages based on your archetype that can hold you back. But here, the last big idea that I want to leave you with is how to know if you are really ready for your next evolution. What does that look like? What does that look like? So the first is, yes, to let go of some of those sabotages and coming back to center. So you're not being drawn in by your sabotages, but you're more in your strengths, which we can get into in future episodes. And if you do want to hear the strengths of your archetypes, please reach out to me. On Instagram is a great spot. But the best thing to start is that you really need to regulate your nervous system so that you're not reacting out of fear and you're making choices from a grounded place. So if you're thinking about, is it time for me to move on to my next evolution? If you're moving out of fear, like, this isn't working fast enough, and what if I don't make enough money, and what if, like, this doesn't work out, and maybe I need to try something new, or all those, that's really coming out of this reactive kind of zone. You want to come back to center and really ground yourself so you're not in fight or flight or reacting, right? So you need to calm, center your nervous system. Maybe that's through meditation. Maybe that's through just grounding breaths. Maybe it's through breath work. Maybe it's through talking to someone so you can calm yourself down, whatever you can do to really center your nervous system. Then you can think about your intuition. That's the first thing that I really looked at, is really leaning into my intuition. And for me, the way that I can listen into my intuition is by really feeling it in my body. So you might feel it in your body. You might hear it. You might get a knowing. You might see it visually. What I can describe as how I feel it in my body, because that's how I really feel my intuition, is that I'll either get like these little tingles in my fingers when I feel like it's the right thing, or I'll get this sense of like expansion in my body versus a contraction. So one way to really think about it is grounding yourself and following into your intuition. And I won't get into the full blown intuition, but if you're like, okay, great, Lauren, I don't know the difference between my fear and my intuition, think back to a moment where you didn't follow your gut and you're like, shoot, I knew that this was the wrong move. How did you know it? Think back to how you knew it. So I usually feel it like in my body, in my fingers. I have these like sensations. If I'm really quiet and calm, I can feel it in my body. And so as I started to notice those feelings, I could actually move it forward in my life and say, oh, I can tell that even though it feels scary to move from my current niche of working with and all of the Facebook group, the email list, the Instagram audience, everything that I've built, my course, my program, all of my funnels for teachers. Even though it felt scary to let that go, I could still tell it felt expansive to try working with entrepreneurs. So I'm slowly moved in that direction because intuitively that felt right for me. The other thing for you to think about, and this is more of a logical set point, is does it feel like it would be worth it for you to have a momentary setback? Does it feel worth it for you to have a momentary setback? No one really told me this when I moved back, but it makes sense in retrospect, is if you're changing to a new offer or a new niche or a new evolution, is you might have a momentary setback of you're not going to have the following, you're not going to have the offer, you're not going to have the revenue, whatever it is. In some way, you might have a setback. But is it still worth it for you? If you think from that grounded place, you're like, no, I'm willing to go through that setback to come into this next evolution. Like it's worth it for me. That's when you can tell it's not out of a reactivity. It's really like no, from a grounded place, like, no, I'm willing to go through that because I know this next evolution is really where I need to go. And when I think about my journey, knowing those archetypes again was really what kind of helped me fully decide is yes, I listened to my intuition. I was regulated and calm before I made decisions, mostly. But what really clinched it for me was thinking about my ideal clients through the lens of those archetypes. And I realized once I realized that my true nature is that ruler, ambitious, like go-getter kind of person, which like everyone around me were like, duh, did you not know that about yourself? But I truly didn't. I thought I was more of like this kind, nurturing person. I don't think I really accepted and honored my ambitious side. And I realized that was the disconnect for me with teachers. It's not that I don't like teachers. A lot of my close friends in real life are still teachers. My family are still teachers. I still really like teachers. But as clients, they weren't my favorite clients because I love to work with really ambitious people. I love ambition. Like I love it. I'm an ambitious person. I love to achieve goals. And I feel truly lit up when I help other people achieve their goals. That is my like absolute number one in life. I love helping people achieve their goals. And so most of my teacher clients weren't looking to achieve goals. They had other motivating factors. They might have had goals like, oh, I want to spend more time with my kids, or some of them were rulers and they were like, I want to start a documentary. I'm like, boom, you're my person. I'll help you with that. Have more time so you can do that. But most of them just wanted to avoid the negative. They wanted to avoid overworking. They wanted to avoid feeling burnt out, and they wanted to work less. I am not here to help people work less. Like, I don't mean that I'm going to help you. Like, I can help you work less in your business and all that stuff and streamline how you're running it. But if that's your number one goal is to work less, I'm not your person. If you want to work less so you can connect more with your family while you go after your goal, yes, I'm your person. But for me to help people work less, I was like, I love working. This doesn't feel aligned. Like, I love what I do. And so it wasn't until I got my archetype that I realized that I needed to work with other people who aren't necessarily rulers, but have that ambitious side, and getting a sense of who my ideal clients were through the archetypes was really helpful for me to decide fully that this is the next direction that I want to go into. So if you ever are feeling called to hear more about how that could work for you, if you know you're ready to, like maybe your programs have felt scattered in the past or heavy, or like you were winging it and they didn't feel like structured and streamlined, and there's something about them that didn't feel aligned for you and you want to really create that aligned version, send me a DM on Instagram because I would love to support you with that. But let's kind of go through and recap the main big ideas that we've chatted about in today's episode. So the first thing to think about is if you are living within a box, and especially are you living within the constraints of a box that you used to have? And does that reflect where you are now? Or are you ready to move beyond that box? Are you putting yourself in a box that you don't actually need to be in? And one of the best ways to know is to chat with other friends who are in business to help you see the limits, or your coach, the limits that you are unaware that you've placed on yourself. The next big idea we thought about is like, are your current thoughts grounded and true to where you want to go, or are they reactive and a form of self-sabotage? So we talked about, are you not moving fast enough and you're getting frustrated? Or are you really wanting to move forward, but you're worried about letting people down? Those can be more responsive reaction to, rather than like a grounded, like whole place connected to where you actually want to go and what you want to do. And then the last big idea we chatted about was, are you ready for that next evolution and how to know for sure? We talked about feeling grounded, leaning into your intuition, knowing that it's worth it to move through this temporary setback, and also just getting connected to who it is that you really want to work with, your ideal people. Are you working with them now, or are you ready to evolve to work with that next iteration of your ideal client? Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Again, if you want some support with this and how to make this work in your business, send me a message on Instagram. I would love to connect with you. It's lauramonique.business. And I will see you on next week's episode of the Align and Inspire podcast.